Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so last week we were talking about types of water. I'm just going to check the answers. I don't think everybody answered on the group. Uh, Let's see, Arias answered. Okay, so if everybody can please have a go at that. There was, last week I put up about maybe 5 to 10 questions. If everybody can just have a look. Okay. So anyway, so now the next point it says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It says, it is not permissible or valid to purify with water that has changed such that it is no longer termed water through admixture with something pure like flour or saffron, which could be avoided. Okay, so number one, it's changed. Okay, if it hasn't changed, then it's fine. Number two, it's changed so much that it could no longer be turned water. So if it has changed, but not enough to no longer be called water, then it is still water. So soapy water is still water. Muddy water is still water. Water that some flour fell into, water that some chlorine has been added to, it's still water. But when you could no longer call it water, or if you called it water, you'd be speaking metaphorically, okay, then it's no longer water. With something like flour or saffron, right? So there's a difference between water with some flour in it and I don't know, something that's before the stage of dough. Like you're mixing water into flour and it's becoming almost like dough, right? Which could be avoided. So if it can't be avoided, it's also overlooked. And that reminds us of a principle that things that are generally unavoidable are overlooked, right? Meaning widespread, recurrent, common difficulties. These are not, you're not expected to have to deal with that. Number two, less than 216 liters of water that has already been used for obligation, such as lifting a state of ritual impurity, even if that of a child. Right? So any water that's been used to change the state of something, it was impure and now it's pure. He didn't have wudu and now he has wudu. He needed to make ghusl. He used that water to make ghusl, that water that comes off your body when you make ghusl, when you make wudu, when you remove filth. That water might be pure, but it is not purifying. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. But then you had another question?
So let's say hypothetically there was some water like that, and then it went through like a water treatment facility. Um, would that turn it into water that can now purify again? What would make
Yeah.
it
So
water that
once
can
it
pure?
reaches, it's going to be, so it's less than 216 liters. So if it's now more than 216 liters, so you're talking about this category here?
Um,
Two, or you're talking about one?
I'm talking about like less than 216 liters of water that was used to to lift a state of ritual
Okay, yeah. So
purity,
now what happens
impurity.
is, for example, I have a bucket of water that I collect my wudu water in. You have a bucket of water you do the same thing with. We get 10 buckets of water, put it all together, and it becomes to 216 liters.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's no longer less than 216 liters,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right? So in a plant like that, let's say for example, sewage water that's processed, because it's more than 216 liters, A, and B, the urine is not, or the feces is not there anymore, then it's fine because it's more than 216 liters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Or less than 260 liters of water that has been used to remove filth, even if this resulted in no change in the water. So, for example, there's a huge barrel of water, 150 liters of water. Okay, barrel of water. I had blood on my finger, so I put my finger in the barrel of water. There's no change to the barrel of water, but because the water is less than 216 liters, the whole barrel is filthy. You can't drink it. You can't use it for anything. I mean, you can give it to your plants. That's about it, right? As opposed to I get the same 150 liters of water and pour a tiny amount of it over my finger and wash off the blood, then it's fine. But that water that was used to remove the blood, even if this resulted in no change, is pure but not purifying. Okay, everyone's following?
Yes.
Sister Amina, Abdul Jalil, Hamza, Muhammad, Hashir, Muhammad Sabir, Nadir, Alabisi, Zainab, Abdullah, Yusuf.
Yes.
Okay, so please, this is not a beginning text, and the text looks complex. So please make sure that you stop me when it's not clear. Okay. So then it is permissible and valid to purify with that which has only slightly changed, right? So something that's slightly changed, right? So washing up liquid. There's washing up liquid in this sink. The sink is full of water. Is it water? Yes, it is water. It's not diluted soap. So it's fine. That has been changed by proximity with something such as aloes or oil. So you have water and there is oil in it. Why? Because the oil doesn't mix with water. So it's fine. 3, it has been changed by something impossible to prevent, such as algae, right? Tree leaves falling in it, dust, or the effects of standing too long. So there's a change in it, a significant change in it, but that change is unavoidable, right? So that doesn't matter. Now, what if the water has now become ice? What if the water has now become mud, right? So the water is now mud. That's just changing the reality of it. It's not even liquid anymore, right? That's totally different. So here's this water. It's collected for a long time. There's tree leaves in it, and now it's turned into mud. It is not water at all. Could you use that for wudu? No. Or water that's become ice. This is a solid piece of ice that does not melt, right? I can't get it to melt. It's just a chunk of ice, right? That's solid. It's not, you can't use that because it's not water. Number 4, that has already been used for non-obligatory, such as the sunnahs of rinsing the mouth, renewing one's wudu, when there has been no intervening state of ritual impurity, or a sunnah purificatory bath. So something that doesn't actually change you, right? Something that doesn't actually change your state, such as washing your hands. The water that comes before you wanted to eat, you washed your hands. Does that water become used? No. Right. The sunnah of washing your mouth or nose, the second and third wash of wudu, that doesn't change the state of a person. So therefore, that water is not used. Okay. Number 5, the water that has already been used and has now been added together until it amounts to 216 liters or more. Right. That was Badr's question. Okay, make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now the next mas'ala is an example of a cancer. Okay, of a cancer in fiqh. So fiqh is created by us, right? Fiqh means understanding, meaning our understanding of revelation. So what happens is we try our best to understand revelation. We put systems together, and by default, these systems give us clarity and ease, right? So, but sometimes the logical thoughts that we have in any madhab, the logical thread that we go in, ends up becoming very, very strict. Does that make sense? It becomes almost like impossible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Sister Emma has a question. This Sheikh, our tanks are cleaned, cleaned every 6 months. There's okay. So Sister Amina asked a question. Sheikh, our water tanks are cleaned every 6 months. When we clean the tanks, there has some sludge. So sludge is not filthy, yes, Sister Amina. It's not najas. Yeah, so as long as the water is water, it's fine. It doesn't matter if there's mud in it or something. Okay, so now, if you can remember in wudu, when you're making wudu, do you have to have a niyyah the whole time? Or is it enough to have a niyyah in the beginning?
It's enough to have it in the beginning
Okay, why do we say that?
because it would be difficult to have it the entire time.
Okay, so we have this idea that you have this thing called turning on wudu mode. You start making wudu, okay? And thereafter, anything you do counts as wudu unless you intend something else. So if you start daydreaming after washing your face, it's okay because it would be difficult for you to focus the whole time. Okay? So that's the concept that we have. By extension, everything you do counts as wudu, unless you intend something else. By extension, if you put your arm in a bucket of water and took it out after washing your face, that would count as making wudu, and that would make the water become used. By extension, if you put your hand in a bucket of water to scoop, but you didn't intend scooping, the water will become used. Does that make sense?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Okay, so we said the default is that you have to have a niyyah throughout the wudu to distinguish worship from non-worship. We said for the sake of ease, you just have to intend at the beginning. And anything that you do without an alternative intention will count as wudu. Everything, is that clear so far to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So now anything you do without another intention will count as wudu. Including, so when you after you've washed your face, you now put your hand in a bucket of water, but you didn't intend to scoop. You just intended nothing. So therefore that counts as wudu, correct?
Yes.
So therefore the water that you just put your hand into becomes used because you just washed your arm with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's very inconvenient because now I put my hand into this water, I take it out, the water's used. So now I can't wash my other arm and I can't wash my head and I can't wash my feet. I have to go and get another bucket of water. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now what do we say? We say, well, Don't do that then. When you're scooping water, intend to scoop water. Don't intend to wash your arm. Does that make sense? So now you're doing two different things. You're saying, I've turned my wudu mode on. I've turned my wudu mode off. I am scooping water in order to get water onto my arm. And then I'm turning my wudu mode back on again at this point. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's read it. So it says, with less than 260 liters, because if it was more than 260 liters, it couldn't become used anyway. So this does not apply to the sea. This does not apply to a lake. This does not apply to a jacuzzi, right? If a person performing ablution, wudu, after washing his face, i.e. after turning the wudu mode on, or the purificatory bath, makes the intention in his heart to use his hands to scoop the water, then the introduction of his hands into this amount of water does not make the water used, because he has another intention, right? Innamal a'malu binniyat. Your amal was not wudu when you put your hand in. Your amal was scooping, so it's something different. But if not, i.e. he did not intend to scoop, then the rest of the water is considered as already used. Okay? So you can see the logic in this, right? And you can see where it comes from. It came from ease, and it ended up in what?
Difficulty.
Difficulty, right? It came from ease, it ended up in pedanticism, when you're kind of being like nitpicky, right? Like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm scooping, I'm not scooping. It's like, oh, okay, right? And then we were forced to follow another madhab suddenly, right? Suddenly the Shafi school became impossible, it says, and then Sheikh Noor adds, but in the Maliki school, it doesn't become used, etc., etc., etc. So like, what happened here? Why did the Shafi school become so impossible? It started off with ease and ended up with something that is impossible, right? So two reasons. Number one, it's a human invention. We are trying to process the Quran and Sunnah with our minds. We don't have any other option. There's no other option, right? Okay? And so that's number one. Number two, when we're making logical extensions, right, it's a bit complex and it's not so easy to navigate. And you can't just bend things here and there, right? And so many Shafi'is, they've ignored this. Many Shafi'is, they said this is nonsense. Like it's not that pedantic, right? And they've argued against this. They say this is not true. But then if you argue against it, what's your logic? You say, no, it doesn't become used. Okay, how does it not become used? Oh, because I intended scooping. Okay, if you intended scooping, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about if you don't intend to scoop. That's what we're talking about. I'm talking about that you started wudu and you started daydreaming, and then you put your arm in a bucket. You put your hand in a bucket. As soon as that hand comes out, you've purified that part of the hand, but the small body of water has now become used. So you also have to be logically consistent, right? So you can't just do whatever you want. You can't come to a conclusion and then if it's difficult, just change it like that. Does it make sense? Because otherwise your deen is not going to be objective. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? We have to think, and we have to think objectively. But at the same time, often when we think objectively, we end up with kind of like very sharp edges in our understanding, right? It becomes it's not a perfect conclusion. And we wish we could change it. But if you just go around changing your conclusions willy-nilly, however you like, you're not going to have an objective religion. Does that make sense? So every single madhab will have funny conclusions like this. They'll go down a route. They say A leads to B, which leads to C, and then D is really awkward or strange or funny. You know? So like the Malikis, for example, they said that every living being, every living animal is pure. So a dog is pure. Okay? And they said that animals, any animal basically besides a pig is makruh to eat and not haram. Right? So like eating a bear, eating a wolf, is makruh. So then the conclusion is you can eat a dog. So everyone's looking at everyone's looking at the Maliki's like, you can eat a dog, honestly. Like, how did you get there? Right? If the Prophet ﷺ told you, if a dog licks from a bowl, wash it 7 times, how can you go and eat the dog? You know? Right? But they're following a logical conclusion. Right? They're following a logical conclusion. It gets a bit funny. Right? The Shafis, we have another logical conclusion. Okay? If you have an illegitimate daughter, is she your daughter?
No.
Okay, what about the woman? A woman committed zina and had a son. Is that her son?
No.
It is actually her son.
Yeah.
So if a woman gives birth to a child, that child is ascribed to her, but it's not ascribed to the biological father. Okay? So if this is not my daughter, can I marry her?
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
going to marry your illegitimate daughter. Is that correct?
Oh, no. I mean, this is not the catch-20.
Is that correct or not correct?
Technically, yes.
Okay. So then,
So as far as I know, it's not haram, but scholars they discourage to do this.
yeah, but can you see the logical conclusion? We said if
Yeah.
the child, if the person is not your child, then they're not a mahram. If it's not a mahram, then you can marry them. So now you have you're married to your grandchild. I mean, your child and your grandchild is the same person. So that'd be pretty weird, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
So you can eat a dog, you can marry your daughter. What else can you do? Right. So the early Hanafis, they said, what is it? They said that alcohol itself is not najis. Wine is najis. Right. So things like beer, things like mead, right? As long as you don't get drunk on it, it's halal. So now I can marry my daughter, eat a pig, eat a what's it called? Eat a dog and get nearly drunk as long as I don't get drunk. So all of these things look kind of really weird. Like that doesn't look like Islam, but they all have logical reasons for them, like logical reasons where that comes from. And so this is just these are these accidents or these cancers or these side effects of the imperfect nature of fiqh. It's not a perfect system. It's a very, very solid system. It's a very, very good system. It is the best system you have, but it's not perfect. Right? Like AI, isn't it great? Like it is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are some downsides of AI?
The
Hallucinating.
Is it very useful for the environment?
No.
Right? Does it use a lot of water?
Yeah.
Right? So pros and cons of these human, right? We made AI, right? It's a human invention and it's not perfect. That's life. So we will find this in every single madhab. You will find these funny conclusions. And you can't just say, oh my God, that's stupid and wrong, because that's not a logical answer, right? Sometimes you can have mujaddids in the school that will solve problems, right? Like they will solve problems, although they object to things, based on what's called maqasid. They look at the spirit of the deen, right? Based on the spirit of the deen. So you'll find that, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Ghazali, others, that they will come along and try and like see something that's like off and say, this doesn't make sense. This is not achieving the spirit of the deen. And they will manage to answer it from a sufficiently academic and thorough way to actually change things, right? But that's not always possible, right? It's not always possible. Like you can't always solve every single problem. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you will see this, oh, we're stuck here in the Shafi school, let's follow another madhab. We're stuck here in the Hanafi school, let's follow another madhab. We're stuck here in the Hanbali school, let's follow another madhab. It happens, right? Okay, so the scenario is again, I'm making wudu, I'm using a small body of water, like a bucket of water. I put my hand in it without the intention of scooping, that water becomes used. With the intention of scooping, this is fine. Okay? Abdul Jalil, you had a question?
Yes, two actually. The first one is
I'm not doing a marriage contract to your daughter, so don't.
no. The first question is, in Morocco and other Muslim countries, they often use like small containers for wudu. Like they fill them up and then they do wudu with it. So sometimes it happens like I take some, I'm scooping some of the water out of it, and then I wash my face, but some of the water from my face falls back into the container again. Is this problematic or no?
Okay, so yeah, so imagine you're camping and doing something like that, right? You're making wudu over a small bucket. So what do we do? You say the following. You say, imagine the water that's coming off your face was milk or orange juice. Okay? So the water that came off your face, some of it dripped back into this small body of water. Okay? And so now you ask yourself, those 10 drips, would they have changed if they were milk, if it was orange juice, if it was something else? Would it have changed? Would it have changed the water in it? You say, no, it's a few drops. Okay, keep going. Now you keep going, you wash your face a second time. Another 10 drops go in. Okay, would those 20 drops have changed the water? I know the water that went in has the same taste, color, and smell as the water that came out. But now it's two different types of water. It's pure and purifying water, and then merely pure water that's coming off your face. So we treat it as if it was something else. Imagine if it was orange juice. Imagine if it was milk. Would it have changed the water? You start washing your arm, you start washing your head and your feet. And if all those drops that fall back in, if they would have changed the water such that you couldn't call it water anymore, then you cannot use it. Otherwise, you can. Does that make sense?
Yes. جزاك الله خير.
Okay. So they call it التغيير التقديري كالتغيير الحقيقي. Right? They say a theoretical change is the same as an actual change. Right? Same thing with filth. Right? There was a small swimming pool, a jacuzzi, okay? And a baby urinated in the jacuzzi. So we say the jacuzzi is pure as long, because it's more than 260 liters. We say as long as the water in the jacuzzi doesn't change, then it is, then it remains pure. But the urine had no smell and no color. So then the baby urinates again, and then the baby urinates again, and the baby urinates again. So now you don't even know, because the urine had no smell and no color. So we say, let's imagine that urine was vinegar or ink. Would you notice the color of the water changing now? So yes. Would you notice the smell changing? Yes. The taste changing? Yes. Okay. So if it doesn't have a smell or a taste and it's najas, you imagine that it was something like ink or vinegar and see if it would have changed it or not. And for water becoming no longer water, we ask the question. If it was milk or orange juice, would it have changed it or not? Okay. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So theoretical change is treated as religion, yeah. This is Sheikh Nuh Kala. These notes here, this is from Sheikh Nuh Kala. He's just looking at this. He's gone through this text twice with muftis, and here and there he's discussed it and thought, is it hard or not? Is a judgment. So hard or too hard is relative. It is relative, right? It's like, it's like, should you take painkillers or not? It's like, well, I don't know. Like, can you deal with that pain or not? Right? Ideally, no. So for myself, for example, I dislocated my shoulder. The first day I took painkillers, but I only took it once because I actually wanted to know what pain I had because I wanted to know what I can move, what I can't move. I want to know what's going on. Does that make sense? So I made an estimation as an individual, as an adult. I actually want to feel the pain because I want to know what I should do, what I shouldn't do, and where is the pain and what's going on, right? That's the judgment I made. Maybe a child, you'd say it's okay. We'll just not do that, So it's a judgment. So we have to remember that there's what 4 levels of difficulty. But if you remember that, right?
Yes.
There's life and death and that kind of thing. That was like level one level, and then the opposite side was negligible, right? And then there's kind of like level 2, which was like really, really difficult and obvious. And then there's level 3, which is debated. So when somebody gives you a rukhsa, when a madhab internally says this is too difficult, you should have this dispensation, or a mufti says no, follow this other madhab, they are looking at they're basically making that judgment. Is this too difficult or not? And in general, when the mufti gives you an answer that is too easy, he's harmed you. And when the mufti gives you an answer that's too difficult, he's harmed you. Just like a parent, you didn't push your child to study, you've harmed the child. You made the schedule too easy for the child and he didn't reach his full potential, you've harmed the child. Right? The exercise you did was too easy, was pointless. The exercise you did was too hard, it harmed you. So the fiqh then, the sir, the getting the thing is where exactly do you do that? And how do you answer everybody at once? Does that make sense? Like how do I speak to the whole of North America with the various different difficulties and backgrounds in one go? Right? It's very, very hard to do that. So the Grand Mufti of a country, that's what they kind of do, is they kind of look at like, where is the country in general? Where are people's difficulties in general? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we default to his judgment, or was that? That's yeah. He's just mentioning it as a dispensation. That's all. Yeah, it's not staying within the madhab. The default is you stay within the strictest possible position. That's the default. What is the strictest possible thing? That's the default. Unless there is benefit in this, unless there is benefit in that, unless there is extreme difficulty in this, extreme difficulty in that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're basically trying to cover your back as much as possible, right? So again, look at painkillers. Are painkillers good for you? Like Tylenol, is that a good thing?
No.
It's pretty bad, right? It's like having like hard liquor, right? It's really bad for your liver. So you're having Tylenol every single day. That's really bad for your liver, right? But you're going to weigh it against like, hey, I actually have chronic migraine. I'm trying to work on it. I'm going to see a neurosurgeon and trying to do this, trying to do that. Like, so it's like life, right? It's these choices that we make. Allahu A'lam. But what is wrong is let's just follow the easiest position all the time for no reason. Okay, that's like paying for the gym but never going. What was the point? And every month you get an update. You're doing really good, Nadir. It's like, I haven't even been. What are you talking about? What's the point? And or the other side, you're actually damaging yourself, right? It's like, no, just push harder, push harder, push harder. Now you can't even walk because you damage your back so badly, So that will happen with people, right? You put people in impossible situations and it's like, it's actually too difficult. There's too many difficult things in my life right now. And the person, you just made it harder with this, all these things. It's just too difficult. Right? And so there's some people who need a lot of rukhsas and other people don't, right? And as I mentioned, in general, women need more rukhsas than men in general. Life is just hard being a female, right? So making it a bit easier, right? Allahu A'lam. So, like some scholars, for example, they come along and say, the ummah's in pain, it's difficult, we should allow musical instruments, because it's kind of like, therapeutic. So yeah, I can imagine it therapeutic for some people, right? But if any group, it would be women, just listen to a song, listen to something, just needs that, just cry a little bit, It's hard being a woman in general. Like just the hormones you go through, all these different things and life and stuff, right? Versus a man, it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's some men who kind of need that, but it's not the same, Someone just coming from a war is not the same as somebody who is, balanced and on their 2 feet emotionally. Allahu A'lam. So arguably, the deen should never be done publicly and should never be done in a book. So you give a public fatwa, that fatwa is not relevant to everybody. So why are you doing it publicly? Why did you put it in a book? It should be one-to-one. The deen should always be one-to-one, right? People went to the Prophet ﷺ one-to-one. Ya Rasulullah, I have this problem, right? The fatwa I give you is not the same I give somebody else, right? So that that's why originally the deen was not written down like that. It wasn't written down like that. It was one-to-one. You study one-to-one and you have a fatwa one-to-one. There's general ideas, but then there's like, it's different. And so that's how it should be in principle, but it's just, so having a book like this, you pick up Reliance Traveler, it's actually very dangerous. The book is quite dangerous if you read it properly. If you can misunderstand things very, very easily. So it's quite a dangerous book to read in reality. Alhamdulillah. I'm not saying women can listen to music. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if anybody would give that rukhsah, it would be women, right? And in general, right? There's a lot of difficult things. As for 216 liters or more, even if 2 or more persons, or did we skip something? Yeah. So it says, even if 2 or more persons in a state of major ritual impurity are immersed in it, whether simultaneously or serially, their impurity is lifted and the water does not become used thereby. Like a sea. Somebody makes a ghusl in the sea, somebody else makes a ghusl in the sea, it doesn't make any difference. Right? A large body of water doesn't matter. Qullatayn is literally 2 large jars, is roughly equal to 300 Baghdad rittles, and their volume is 1 1/4 dira' in height, width, and length. Right here, the definition of qullatayn is based on the estimating dira' at 48 centimeters. Metric equivalents of Islamic weights and measures are given at the end. Right, so this is again an ijtihad. We also have an ijtihad of what were these measurements of the past, right? So we have these different types of measurements of the past and how they were recorded. And so it is kind of like, a kind of an estimation of what these things actually were, right? Okay, so it says 216 liters of water does not become impure by mere contact with filth, right? So somebody urinates in the sea, there's a dead fish in the sea with his blood everywhere. It doesn't matter, but only becomes so by changing. So you go into the Atlantic Ocean and a shark just kills a seal and there's blood everywhere. That area where the blood is, that is najas. The blood goes away, it's now pure, right? The swimming pool, the baby just urinates in the pool and there's urine around the baby. And then after 2 minutes, you can't see any urine. It doesn't matter, it's all gone now, right? It's all pure. Okay, but if it changes in taste, color, or smell, you can taste the urine, you can see the urine, you can smell the urine, then it's najas. Go ahead, Musa.
What about a running river? Like, let's say someone urinates in a running river. Is that area impure, or would it be downstream?
So with a river, we're going to look at each gush of water. So a normal river, it's so big that you can't even cut up into pieces. So it's going to be over 60 liters. But if you imagine a very small stream, right? And then it basically like it comes in gushes. Like it's that you could take a whole strip of like two meters and you could probably get like 40 liters out of it. Right. And then another gush comes, and then another gush comes. So if it comes in gushes, they call that a jarya, then each jarya is treated by itself. But if it's a continual flow, then it's one. So then basically look at the whole stream and you say, yeah, the whole stream's huge. I mean, the whole, it's you know, thousands of liters, so it doesn't matter. Okay. If such change disappears by itself or by water added, then it becomes pure again. But the 260 liters of water does not become purifying if the change disappears by such thing as musk or earth. So you cover the change with chlorine. You cover the change with earth. You cover the change by putting a smell in it. That doesn't. The point is that it goes away. So with the baby pool, you ask yourself, if the chlorine wasn't there, would you be able to smell the urine in the whole pool? Yes or no? If you could, then it's all najas. And if you can't, then it's not all najas. Less than 260 liters becomes impure by mere contact with filth, whether the water changes or not, unless the filth falls into it, whose amount is indiscernible by eyesight. So you have to understand in each book, chapter of fiqh, there's certain things that we ignore, right? We don't consider relevant, right? So for example, in transfer of filth, if you can smell filth, that means the filth is in your nose. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Like physically, that's the case, right? You can't smell through glass, can you? Like smell is not in waves. It is a chemical that has been born in the air and gone into your nose. That's how you can smell it, right? But do we care about that? No, we don't. We ignore that, right? There's many things that we just ignore in fiqh, right? In a contract, we ignore your intention. We don't care what your intention is. In a contract, we ignore your knowledge, right? So Badr, for example, stole his dad's car and sold it. So do we ask what his intention was? No. So I would just judge the contract at face value. Does Badr own the car? And it turns out he did own the car because his father, may Allah protect him, passed away 1 second before he sold it. And Badr was the sole heir. So then he became the owner of the car. And so Badr sold the car thinking that he didn't own it, but he did own it. So I'm not interested in his intention or what he knows. I ignore certain things in contracts. And so in contracts, I might ignore certain things in your intention. What did you mean by that word? As long as the word was explicit and clear, it doesn't matter what you meant. You know? Like I said, I hereby sell you the car for $10,000, and I meant I'm renting it to you for 2 years. It doesn't matter what your intention was. As long as you said the words, it doesn't matter. So there's certain things that we ignore that's not relevant. So one of these things that we have to learn in fiqh is what to ignore. What's relevant, what's not relevant. Right? How, you know, these kind of like what's relevant in this discussion. Okay. So here it's irrelevant when there's filth there, but you couldn't see it, even if you know that it's there. Or if something dead falls into it of creatures without flowing blood, such as flies and the like, in both of which cases it remains purifying. So these are two separate issues. One is, what do I ignore? If I can't see it, it's not there, even though I know that it's there. That's number one. Number two is something that's unavoidable. So a dead fly is najas. A dead fly is najas. You cannot not eat dead flies. You have a dead fly on your clothes while you're praying, prayer doesn't count. It's considered najas. However, it's very difficult to avoid flies dying in water. It's very common. You have a bucket of water, you have open water, a tank. It's very common to have dead flies in it. It's very normal. So because it's so difficult to avoid, the Sharia has overlooked it. And it has come explicitly in the hadith that the Prophet said, if a fly goes into your drink, then dunk it, right? When you dunk it, you're going to kill the fly, normally. So that tells us that the fly does not make the water filthy. So small things like this, cat hair, right? Does anybody here have cats?
My family does.
Your family has cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, it's going to get quite serious in a second. Because if you like cats, you can stay in the class. If you're not a cat person, you can't stay in the class. So just make up a lie to stay in the class, okay? Okay, you have cats, right? Abdul Jalil, Hamza, you have cats in your house? Muhammad Hashim, do you have any cats on your course that doing the PhD with you? Yusuf has 2 cats. Okay, so is it normally reasonable if you have cats to be totally free of cat hair?
No.
It's not. That's not a normal thing to do, right? That's not normal. So could it happen that, for example, you're drinking a glass of water and subhanAllah, there's actually a cat hair in it,
Yes.
right? Is it possible that you're praying, for example? There's a picture of cats. Whose cats are these? Is this your cat, Musa? Oh,
No, I was making a joke because he said
Thank you.
Muhammad's cat is gonna get a doctorate, so I posted a
oh,
video
I
of the
see.
cat.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. What's he reading? Something in Russian? MashaAllah. Anyway, so the point is, it's not reasonable to ask somebody with a cat to be totally free of cat hair. And so the cat hair goes into a glass of water, cat hair goes into, I don't know, it's on their wet hand, well, they just made wudu and the cat hair sticks to their hands. Now their whole hand is najas. That would be very difficult. So it's the same kind of thing. Cat hair, flies, the same thing. Donkey hair. Are donkeys usual animals that we use? Not in my life,
Yes.
but throughout the world, right? Are they normal animals to use?
Yes.
Right? So the average person is going to use a donkey because it's very compared to a horse, for its size, it's much stronger than a horse, right? It's a strong animal, it's a solid animal, it's very useful. You use it for carrying things around, right? So you have a donkey, right? If you rode a donkey, do you think you could avoid the donkey hair on your trousers?
No.
No. If you have a donkey, you're camping and you're traveling with your camels and your donkeys and your horses, and the donkey hair comes off, it's going to come off. It's going to happen, right? So it's just, it's just a normal situation that you're going to be in, and that's just life, right? That's just life. So it's not reasonable to avoid it. Flies, those kind of things, right? Okay, so it's something dead without blood, okay? And now notice another system, okay? Notice another system. One system is something that is very difficult because it's generally unavoidable is excused, right? So that's the terms, that's from the point of view of the maslaha, okay? The maslaha, the benefit is great in being overlooked. Because it would be very difficult to avoid any fly going in your water, or any amount of cat hair, or any amount of donkey hair, or any amount of little things dying in your water. It'd be very difficult. That's number one. Number two, notice it says they don't have flowing blood. So would there be more harm in finding a dead rat in a bucket of water than finding 5 dead flies in a bucket of water? Do you think there's more harm?
Yes.
100%, right? So having a dead pigeon, a dead rat in your bucket of water is a health issue versus having, for example, 10 dead flies in it are not the same. Notice there's no blood, right? There's no flowing of blood. It's not really the same. So the Sharia, what does it do? Is it weighs things up. How difficult is this? How bad is this? Okay? So it's not that every difficulty is the same and everything bad is the same. Okay? It's not the same. So, for example, a woman exposing her forearm, right? A woman exposing her forearm. She's exposing her aura, correct?
Yes.
Okay? And that's haram, correct?
Yeah.
Is that the same as her exposing her thigh?
No.
No, it's not. So, what the Sharia would require for the difficulty that would allow her to expose her forearm would not be the same that would allow her to expose her thigh. Okay? So it's not this. So it's not just okay. Haram becomes halal for duress. Haram becomes halal for widespread difficulty. There's also different levels of haram, right? The makruh, for example, is not really haram, so it's kind of like it's on a very low level of mafsada, of harm. And so for the makruh to become no longer makruh is quite easy. For a low level haram to become halal, it's much easier. For example, you're not allowed to walk around naked by yourself. So you're just at home, you just walk around naked. You can't do that. It's haram. Okay, but I need to change. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I need to shower. Oh, yeah, go ahead. It's just super hot. Okay, sure. So what would allow you to do that thing that's haram, in which there is very little harm, like there's nobody looking at you. It's just you. So it's just an issue of like hayat before Allah. That hayat before Allah is overlooked for some kind of benefit. As long as you have some kind of need, I'm changing, I'm showering, I'm whatever it is. Okay. Right? Whereas the same haram, let's say, for example, somebody else seeing your private parts is totally different. That would be for now for medical necessity. And now they're going to have to be the same gender and they're going to have to be upright and Muslim and etc. So suddenly it's not going to be the same, right? So it's not just it is not just how the haram becomes halal in a binary sense. It is also on a gradient. What kind of haram are we talking about? And there is some haram that never becomes halal, right? For example, murder. If you put a gun to my head and say, Fareed, I will kill 15 people if you don't kill this one person, I still can't kill him. You can't do it, right? There's certain things you just can't do. So murder is one of these things you can't do it. The person says, I have a gun, I'll kill all of these people if you don't kill this one person right now. You can't do it, right? So there's some things that don't become halal at all. Other things become halal, but we're going to see how far you're going to push it, right? How far are you going to push it, depending on the situation, these kind of things, right? For example, you watching a film for educational reasons that involves swearing and violence is not the same as you watching a film for educational reasons that contains pornography, right? It's not the same. Oh, for educational reasons, we're watching this film that has pornography. That's not the benefit does not outweigh the harm. Whereas violence, swearing, right? The benefit outweighs the harm usually, right? But sometimes it wouldn't. Does that make sense? So it's not just every haram can become halal for a need or a pressing need. It's not like that. It actually depends on the level of the haram and the level of the, what's it called? The level of the harm and the level of the need. Okay, so here we said here it is flies. It's very difficult to avoid and they don't have any blood. Small harm, great need. You see that? Versus, oh, there's like 10 dead mice in my bucket of water and I really need to drink that water. I'm like, yeah, that's not very normal and there's a huge harm. So the need for the fatwa, for the change is not really there. And the harm is huge, right? Because it is a genuine health issue, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it says, or something falls into it. So here the question, Amina, would be, what if you put the flies in it? That's why. Unless it falls into it, it's fine. But what if you put it into it? Like you collected dead flies and put it in water. Okay. Clear. And then when we say how bad, we mean look at the 5 goals of the Sharia. What are the 5 goals of the Sharia? Who knows what the 5 goals are? Who knows what the Sharia protects 5 things. Who knows?
Preservation of lineage.
Preservative lineage / sexual dignity, right? That's one category. Sexual dignity / lineage, yeah.
Life.
Preservation of aql.
Your mind, right? Sanity and mind, yeah.
Preservation of property.
Property, yeah.
Religion. Deen specifically.
Keeping you Muslim, yeah. And the 5th one is
Life.
life, right? Life / limbs. So here, right?
Sorry, what's the fourth one?
So we have the 5 was aql, meaning sanity. Allah wants you to stay sane. He wants you to stay alive. He wants you to stay Muslim. He wants you to look after your property. And he wants to know your lineage, who is your parents and who are your children, and your sexual dignity, right? So for example, the right that a man has not to be sexually abused by another man, right? So that's not really lineage, is it? Because there's never going to be a lineage involved. But it's like you have a right as a man not to be sexually abused by another man. That's included in the word ird. When you say ird, right? That's included in that concept. So who's my child? Who's my parents? And that sexual dignity, right? So what we do then when we say how bad is that or how important is that, we look at it in terms of how they connect to those goals, right? How they connect to the goals. So if you look at, for example, the person who says, okay, I'm changing in my house, am I allowed to expose my private parts to the mirror or to the wall? There's nobody in the room because I'm changing. You say, yes. Okay, why? Because the harm is very small. Whereas the person is he's changing outside. Like, why are you changing outside of your house? That's now touching upon a huge goal of the Sharia, which is your sexual dignity, right? So it suddenly becomes very different. A woman traveling by herself, right, is different to a man traveling by himself, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, a man traveling by himself is a shaitan, and 2 is 2 shayateen, and 3 is a group. So men shouldn't travel by themselves, but a man traveling by himself is not the same as a woman traveling by herself. Why are they different? Oh, one ties to sexual dignity, the other one is not really. The other one is like other things, right? But a woman by herself, she is vulnerable. It's not a good idea. Issues of lineage, issues of sexual dignity come in, right? So how bad is that? How okay is that? Depending on the situation, right? It's very, very different. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not just arbitrary. It is they are looking at these things and how it ties in with those things. So remember, Sheikh Ashraf Munib, one of my teachers, he said when you first study fiqh, you realize everyone is stupid and bad, right? Because everyone's doing the haram. And then when you study usul al-fiqh, how you interpret the texts, you realize you're stupid and bad because you don't understand anything. And then when you study maqasid al-sharia, what's the sharia trying to do? Everything fits in. Right? So when you have a fatwa that doesn't have fiqh in it, it doesn't have usul in it, and doesn't have the maqasid, like the goals of the Sharia are just not there, it's very, very dangerous, right? It's very dangerous. And you kind of end up doing kind of crazy things, and it causes a lot of harm, you know. And this can change from place to time and people, because you could cause this huge harm in one place, and that same harm would not be the same. So, for example, many of you have heard me talk about the halal boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. So in the West, it's not a big deal. You go to work, you met somebody at work, she was interesting, he was interesting, you spoke to them respectfully afterwards, you started a halal relationship based on a contract, okay? And you didn't live together, you didn't have any children, and then you broke up. It's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. That's just like a normal thing that happens in the West. You dated somebody at work, it didn't work out, you move on, it's not a big deal. Whereas copy and paste that somewhere else, you're going to cause huge problems. The fact that these people are married, but there was no big wedding, the fact that they are married, but they don't live to each other, the fact that they were married, but now they're not married. The nature of what marriage is and gender interaction changes from place to place. Could cause huge harm in one place and very negligible harm somewhere else, right? So, these are these kind of things that come in there. Wallahu a'lam. We have another class, inshallah. So then let's just read this last part, section. She says, he says less than 206, I don't know, we did this. So it says when less than 206 liters of impure water is added to until it amounts to 206 liters or more. So you had 200 liters of filthy water plus another 200 liters of filthy water, and you put them together, and there's no change. You can't see any blood in them. You can't see any, they don't smell anything, then it's all pure now, right? It's all pure. And he says change resulting from something pure or impure means in color, taste, or smell. Okay. And then it just says in the Arabic, it says, and it's recommended to cover containers. Okay, we'll come to this show. There's an issue here, but it's generally recommended. You have something, you have a glass or something like that that's outside in the kitchen. You should cover it. It shouldn't be, even if it's just with a stick, a little thing. It doesn't have to be fully covered, but just something, a spoon over the top of it is sufficient. Should be covered. Inshallah, we'll stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.